seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1.
Blast off.
Blog Talk Radio.
Well, how do you do? Guess what? Today is the last day of 2020. So if there's anything that you felt like you needed to get done this year, you got time. It depends on what you want to do. This is Dr. Deb Carlin and my co-host, Mr. Brian Lunt. Good morning, Brian. How are you?
Good morning. I'm fantastic.
You are fantastic. I've always thought that about you. What makes today fantastic, and what makes you fantastic today?
Well, I've got a lot to be thankful for. I think the rolling over of the old year to the new year is a time to reflect a little bit and see what happened over the course of the last year in our lives, and then what we have in store for next year and the future. And so I am a very blessed man and have a lot of good things in my life. So yeah, every day is a good day.
I can attest to that. You really do have a lot of blessings in your life.
Yeah.
Which is amazing.
What's interesting, and I think applicable to our theme with the Riding a Lion, is that it really is about perspective.
Oh, yeah.
I often say that even the poorest of Americans would be in the top 1%, on a global stage. That doesn't make it any better for people who are struggling, but it does allow for a little bit of perspective. I very much like immigrants to our country who come and have lived in very difficult circumstances, and their eyes light up at just the wonderfulness of living in America on a daily basis. And when you have that perspective to understand we get to live in this phenomenal place, it's really just a blessing every day. And for me specifically, I have nothing of any consequence to worry about. If we're identifying Maslow's hierarchy of needs, I'm focused on the upper needs most days. So I feel very blessed to have that opportunity.
The thing about when we say in comparison to other parts of the world that we're doing better off here, some people hear that, and I understand that they think, oh, that is so insensitive. Don't you know that people are suffering? Well, here's the secret behind that. In addition to what you already said, which I really like what you said now, how you articulated that. But if what we do in our life is we look at our life and go, oh no, oh my gosh, this is awful, icky, oh, ugh. Well, how are you really going to get where you want to be if that's what you see? I wrote a book probably 30 years ago called Attitude is Everything.
Mm-hmm.
And it really, it stands alone. It's just so flipping true, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. And I think giving some focus on the idea of comparison as well. I mean, comparison is not something that I throw out there to commiserate about. I put comparison out there for perspective, to just showcase that, if we have our mindset focused on the positive things in our life, it's a better way to live. It's a happier way to live. One of the things that I've focused on in 2020 is comparisons to myself. We were just recently talking about the BioFit, which is where I go and work out. What I love so much about it is they have data that compares you from the week prior. And so you understand, last week I was this strong, this week I'm this strong, and I was the previous time. And a friend or a colleague or a whomever can get next to you and they can lift twice as much as you do. And it doesn't matter how much they lift, because all we're doing is looking at what our capabilities are and what we're comparing and benchmarking against ourselves. And so that has been a big focus for me in 2020 as we kiss goodbye for this year, is that I want to be the best version that I can be
of you.
And I want to inspire others to be the best version that they can be. And it gets back to what we've spoken about in the past, that I do not believe in competition, because the only competition we really have is with ourselves. And it's just trying to do the best we can individually. And it's again, perspective. When you're cheerleading other people on to be as good as they can be, it's a much better perspective than saying I'm trying to beat you, or there's a zero-sum game where one of us is going to win and the other is going to lose. If we're both trying to challenge ourselves to be the best that we can be, then we can all kind of push towards the same direction.
You know, the thing that I think about in terms of competition, people will say, well, how are you supposed to do sporting events? And I go back and I remember there was Ken Christian is a guy in St. Louis who has a publishing house or had a publishing house. And he had asked me to edit some books. And so I love editing. I mean, it's so much fun. You know, you get to dive into these manuscripts and read everything and see the inside of everything before it's all nice and cleaned up. And his focus was on St. Louis, and his focus was also in sports.
Great.
And so I got to read a wonderful book about the origins, the beginning of baseball in the United States.
Mm.
And all the names that you can think of, you know, Babe Ruth and Ty Cobb and all these guys, all these men. And it was in the day when they didn't get paid much money in order to play. I mean, they were really grown men playing, you know,
Yeah.
and they did it for the love of the game. And so they would come out there. They were really a team. They would really play together. There wasn't competition of I'm getting 40 million bucks, haha, schmucky, you know, you're only
Right.
getting 20. And it was a team cohesion within the team. And then the team that they played against out on the field, it was that cohesive team, but it was like, you know what, you won, but we played a hell of a good game. We went out there and we really had fun, and nobody was out there to slaughter or demean or demoralize anybody. Now, were they hotheads? Did they drink too much? There was a lot of that went on. Human characteristics are still there. And so, you know, there were fisticuffs that came up, but the spirit of it, I think, made such beautiful sense. And they learned, and they role modeled. And so money really infused and ruined a lot of relationships because people got divisive behind that, right?
Yeah.
So when people are talking about competition, I think that they don't understand the beauty that happens with a collaborative spirit. You know, every now and again, I have to confess, I walk into an arena, whether it's live or it's social media, and everybody's, you know, looking pretty, putting their best foot forward. And I'm thinking, God, I'm nobody. I've done nothing. I don't have it together. I should have gotten a different outfit, my hair. And then I think to myself, I got to get out of here or else I got to switch my attitude like that.
Yep.
Because, you know, there are people who will show up in a room and they really want to show everybody, hey, I am so much better than the rest of you. And I fall for it too often, and I just really don't like it.
Well, I think there's confidence and then there's false confidence.
Yes.
For me, I love confident people.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know, I had a good friend growing up who was just one of these stellar athletes. Everything he did, he was good at. You know, he broke his leg one time and we played basketball, and he was still a better basketball player than I was with a broken leg. It was unbelievable. And we hung out quite a bit. I mean, grew up with him, and there was a lot of people who thought he was cocky. And I said, you're not cocky if you can back it up. And he was one of these athletes, and that's what I love about the real competitors that want the ball. You know, like Michael Jordan is known for his competitiveness, but it's because he wanted to showcase that he was the best at what he did, and he was competitive more against himself, I think, than anything else. And he had the hardest work ethic for himself.
Mm-hmm.
But I enjoy watching athletes who own the challenge and say, I want the best there is to go up against, and I'm going to beat them.
Mm.
And I don't think that is a cocky thing. I think that is a challenge for them to say, I want you to bring whatever you've got, and I want to win on that day. I don't want to cheat. I don't want anything that's going to hold you back. I want the best of everything that can come. And when I win, I know I won for the right reasons, because you put forth the effort and you played your best game, and on that day you were the best. And that's, to me, at the spirit of competition, if you want to call it that. But there's there's an icky feeling that comes from somebody winning when the referees made a decision, or the call went the wrong way, or the ball bounced, or the puck bounced a certain way.
Right.
When you see two athletes or two warriors go out there and give it their all, and then the camaraderie afterwards of shaking hands or hugging and saying, boy, wasn't that phenomenal?
Right.
Like, we just left it all out there.
Right.
And in this circumstance, you came up, on the winning side, but we both kind of won because we both figured out what we're made of. And that to me gives me chills. I love the competition in that regard.
You're all jacked up just talking about it. It's
I
great.
am.
The thing that I think is cocky that I don't like when somebody gloats.
Agreed. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
cocky to me is if you've won, good sportsmanship isn't just for when you lose.
Mm-hmm.
Good sportsmanship is also for when you win. And one of the reasons I love tennis and I admired John McEnroe until he would throw his tennis rackets in a fit. And then I thought to myself, you know what? That's just so wrong. Cut it out. Don't do that.
Yeah. That's the 5-year-old coming out.
Yeah, exactly. The uncorrected 5-year-old coming out.
Exactly.
Well, in the world of entrepreneurship for us, the idea of competition, how does that play in?
I love that you're using sports to kind of think about entrepreneurship, because one of my big tutorials that I utilize uses sports as the analogy. And so I have been a student of Dan Sullivan and the strategic coach methods for a long time, mostly through other friends who are almost disciples of what it is that he puts out there. And he has a platform or program called entrepreneurial time management system. And through his research, they've analyzed the best use of time for the most efficient outcomes, which is something that's a theme that I like to express in all the different overlapped areas. Basically, they subscribe 60% of your time should be dedicated to revenue producing activities. But I correlate that to play time. Like, when you're playing the game, when you're in, that's when you're in your element. That's when you're out on the field, right? You're playing the game. And so your revenue producing activity is throwing the football or running the bases or whatever correlates to your play time. Then 20% of your time should be preparation or practice. So it's the time that you're getting your body and your mind and your craft ready to get to play. And then the other 20% of time is flex or flexible time, which is your off season. And it's the types of things that you do to make sure that your mind and your body is relaxed enough, and you've taken enough downtime to make sure that you can play at an optimal level when you get there. And so I utilize that template in order to design, revenue producing activities, and then kind of exchange the currency of time over into money. And so I like that from a competition perspective. What is your craft? What are you playing in? What is your skill set? What job do you have that you are in your element and you love to compete? You love to get out there and showcase your skill set.
Yeah.
And so it's a different mentality to, I have to win or I have to beat this person.
Yeah.
It's the same types of principles that go into the negotiation settings of zero-sum game versus win-win. And I think when you have a different perspective or a different mindset towards winning at all costs or just playing the game as best you can, it's totally different outcomes and a vibe and an energy to it.
So I want to ask you a question. When you were saying all that, I was agreeing with you up until the point, and then I had a big question mark come in my head when you said when you're out there, and then you used air quotes, which I don't do.
Did I use air quotes?
Yeah, the bunnies. I always think people really want to go over and sing that song. Was a hunter in the woods.
I think I just put my hands up, but I might have made some air quotes. But yeah, what did it look like I air quoted?
It is so much fun just to play with you. Now, this is play
It
in
is.
here. This is revenue producing and play for both of us.
Yeah.
So when you said competition, when you're out there and you're doing it and that's your competition, you put the air quotes around competition, which made me
Yep.
think I have a different word for it. And I'm wondering how it meshes with what your mindset is. Okay. So here goes. So I was thinking, okay, you know, revenue generating 60% of the time, gearing it up and practicing 20% of the time. Then as soon as you said 20% of the time, flex time, I'm thinking, massage,
Yes.
beach, golf,
Yep.
all the things I really love that do really get my head straight.
Yes.
So and I just brought my golf clubs in from my car yesterday. I mean, it was like, okay, I don't think I get to play outside again yet this year. Not here. So the thing that I was thinking about was whether I am being a doctor of psychology and I'm working with somebody and I'm walking and guiding them through whatever, or personally or their business or health or whatever it is, or I'm giving a keynote, doing a delivery, or I'm doing a seminar, or I'm here. I think of myself not as being in competition with anybody, but I think of myself as being in service.
Sure.
So what's the difference between when you're in that 60% and you're being in service and how that's competition?
It's two things there. What I would define as playtime
Yeah.
is revenue producing activities.
Yeah.
So if you're getting paid for it, it applies. Whether you're in competition or service, to me, there's a middle ground where you're more in competition with yourself, where you're trying to do whatever it is that your craft is to the best of your abilities.
I like that.
Yeah.
It reminds me, I just had this conversation with somebody. We were talking about being on camera and I said, oh my gosh, I'm on camera every day because I'm doing these Zooms on Blog Talk Radio. So I see myself every day. And so I'm thinking to myself, oh my God. Or, oh yeah, this is a good look today. And what I'm really grateful for is the vast comparison. I remember when I first started getting on cameras for my work, I was in training to be doing interviews with people for their psychological issues.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was interview tactics and having to, have this persona that would relax people to want to talk to you. And I'll never forget, I had on too much makeup and there was this like white highlighter stuff you'd put under your eyes. And my eyes had gotten moist or something. So I looked like a raccoon. It was all black under my eyes. I had no clue until I saw the footage back. Plus I sat there and I was bobbing my head and I was going, and I thought, oh dear God. I need to get a career as a woodpecker or something. This is horrifying. So in that regard, the comparison is really lovely. And to compete with yourself is a wonderful exercise, because what it means is that you've got real reflection capability and insight capability. And when it comes to somebody like Michael Jordan, what I hear about him is he's so awesome. He is the best, but he's such a team player. He wants the ball because he knows he's going to get it where it needs to go. But he's so good. He's so kind. His teammates love him, right?
Yeah, I watched the documentary that he did that was all about, the Bulls and their success, and really it was focused in on him. And he really wanted to win more than just about most athletes out there. And you look at him and you see his desire and his competitive spirit to be the best. It was almost a requirement that others had to expand themselves and rise up to his level, or he would just haze them. And there were times that they considered him mean or inappropriate or whatever it may be, because he had such a desire to be the best and to beat everybody that he demanded that you have that same kind of desire. And so he was only a team player in as much as it allowed him to make the team win. And so if you came in and you weren't giving it everything you've got in order to make that team the best it could be, then he would say, go home. You don't need to be here, because you don't belong with us, because we are here to win championships every single year.
I love that. I love that attitude. And by the way, sometimes I feel like maybe I'm a little snotty with people, even though I try to do it in a loving way. I mean, like if you're going to be on my team, if you're going to come into like these interviews, I expect everybody to show up, look good, be awake, have their scene set. And when it comes to doing our work, I know anybody who's on my team, like if you're going to do it half baked, I had a guy, he was really a sweetheart, but he was kind of strung out on some dimension of life, not drugs, but some dimension of life. And he would do video footage for me, which was great. But then he would edit it. It's like, what were you playing with, a can of alphabet soup or something? I mean, the spelling is off. It's not in the right place. And initially what I would say was, I think that you need to go back. I guess you didn't edit this, as opposed to being more direct. I think I've probably become more direct with every passing year.
Yeah.
Because there's no time to pussyfoot around with somebody and give them, a little pat on the back. Oh, I know you tried to do your best, because we don't have time for that. By the time we are really on our stride in life and in our entrepreneurship in particular, when you stop to think about it, it's really interesting. I have so many people who say to me, so are you retired now? Well, most of the people who I grew up with, they retired 20 years ago. And I've been wondering, what are you doing? What are you guys doing? Well, they were employees.
Yeah.
Or they had something magnificent that they were doing and they sold it and they just made so incredibly much money. They just didn't, they just wanted to do something different. I can't imagine retirement ever. My parents were entrepreneurial. I never saw them wanting to retire. My mother was in her 80s and she would say to me, now, I know that with Partners in Excellence, you need my help. And I'd say, you know what, Mom, you're absolutely right. I wouldn't say, well, what do you want to do? Or like, what do you got in mind? I'd just say, you're absolutely right. Tell me how. She was a good businesswoman. And so she helped me. This woman in her 70s, I gave her first computer. She cleaned it for 7 days. And I said, how about if we turn it on now? And once she turned it on and got on there, I mean, she knew the internet. She learned Excel spreadsheets. She used to do a lot of Excel spreadsheet work for me, helping me do projections and keep track of things. And we never had somebody who said, okay, here's what your annual salary is. Every month or every week or every 2 weeks, you're going to get this paycheck. And, you don't have to think about anything else. I don't ever live without thinking about, okay, here we go. We'll roll this out. We'll see how this goes. So if I'm not always aiming for achievement, for results, then I'm lost. I mean, like every single client that I get is a brand new demonstration of my capability.
Yep.
They come to me because of my reputation, but they don't stay with me because of my reputation. It's what can I do for them?
Yeah.
Pretty quickly. What do I get out of this?
And that's such a good perspective when it comes to this riding a lion theme, is that entrepreneurs know, if I don't show up, if I don't do the best job that I can do, I'm not going to make any money. I'm not going to continue with the career choice that I've made. I have to continue giving it my all as long as I'm still in business. And you can't necessarily just sit back and write it out. There's ebbs and flows that get evened out from a corporate setting that don't necessarily get evened out from an entrepreneur's setting. And you don't just, receive your check and the 401k comes off the top and the health insurance comes off the top, and then you take whatever you get back and then you go, live your life. And it's easier, it's simpler, I should say, to receive that way. But it's still worth, in my opinion, so much more when you have that entrepreneurial thinking, that critical thinking component. Says I want to be in charge of my own destiny. I want to be able to dictate how I spend my time, who I work with, and have more control over these things. It's it's still a better recipe for the right person.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where you have the entrepreneur thinking as opposed to more of a steady, you know, kind of go with the flow, more reactive type of nature.
Well, I like your analogy of riding a lion. I hadn't heard that before. But when you mount a wild animal, I mean, if you've got the courage to walk into their terrain, to walk up to them, to climb onto them, and then to say, let's go, you never know what a beast
Mm-hmm.
you might have as opposed to something that's really tame. And I feel that way out here being an entrepreneur. I mean, I never know what kind of a beast am I going to encounter. And sometimes that beast turns out to be a really volatile client.
Mm-hmm.
Whoa. And really, something just flashed through my mind. When you are a big company, somebody in that company is entrepreneurial.
Certainly.
Somebody is responsible for saying, we got to go get those contracts. We got all these people who count on us. So entrepreneurs, to a certain extent, like right now, I'm not well, I think I'm a mogul, but I'm not, I don't have 1,000 people in my employ, but I touch a lot of lives, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing a lot of things to influence people's return on their investment with me.
Yeah.
And I think it's exciting. I mean, I never doubt everything that will unfold. But ever since you had us riding a lion once a week, like I have to kind of calm down a little bit in the morning. Oh,
I'll tell you one of my favorite things that my dad taught me about really entrepreneurial thinking. And he's a simple guy. He will claim that he's not entrepreneurial thinking when he's extremely entrepreneurial thinking, and he's run his own business for many, many years. He used to always say, act like you own the place.
ah,
And when I originally heard that, and I think there's some element to this, I heard that, you walk into a restaurant and you act like you own the place.
yeah,
And when you hear that from a shallow perspective, you hear, I can do what I want in this institution. I
yeah,
can sit in any space. I can order people around. But that's not what he meant.
right.
What he meant was take the pride of ownership in a space that says, if I own this business, how would I treat this thing? If I own this home or this building, how would I treat it as if it were mine? And I've always taken that to heart. I'm currently in a commercial space that I do not own, but
Mhm.
every single day I treat it as if I do,
Mm,
because I want someone, if I did own it, and when I do own it, I want to know that people are there that take care of it the way that I would, or the way that I
yes.
do if I own it. And so I try and align myself with folks that are entrepreneurial thinking,
Mm-hmm.
and they understand somebody owns this place, somebody runs this business, and I want them to treat me as if I would treat myself or my family or my friends if I were the owner of this establishment. So I always took that to heart as, act like you own the place. It's that kind of cocky thought when you hear it, but then when you let it resonate a little bit, it goes, oh yeah, there's some wisdom in that.
Not only wisdom, but there's a lot of grace in that.
Hmm.
Because so many times, I understand why we had to pass a law called the innocent bystander law. You are not allowed in this culture in America. You're not allowed to be the innocent bystander. Now, by the way, I don't know where that went to in 2020, because we had a lot of innocent bystanders watching stuff happen, right?
Yeah.
But really, if you walk into everything and say, I really care about this.
Hmm.
This matters to me. So if I have to actually kind of put a curb on it every now and again, because I do walk into a place, and if I see things that are out of order, I want to get them in order,
Yeah.
you know, and make sure that everything is the very best that it could be. Because I do think about who were the founders of this. If I'm walking into a retail store or a restaurant, it doesn't really matter. I really want everything in there to be spectacular because I want to be there to enjoy it.
Yeah. Yeah. I do this interesting thing when I'm in a bathroom and there's water all over the countertop.
Me
I
too.
always wipe it off.
I do
Always.
too. My
Because,
mother said to me, go in and leave everything better than what you found it.
yeah.
And I
Yeah.
don't know, what are people doing? I'm glad that men do that too. I'm
Oh,
always
all
like,
the time.
what are these women doing? And like, where do they put their purse when they're slapping the place up?
One of the quotes, and because I love quotes, I love other people's wisdom, and they can say things a lot of times better than I can. I love this quote that says, I wish somebody would. I saw this quote that said, I wish somebody would do something about that, and then I realized I'm somebody. And it just makes the point that, hey, that place looks sloppy over in the corner over there, or somebody dropped some trash on the ground. Well, pick it up. If you're noticing it and you think that somebody ought to do something, well, be that somebody. Go and do it. Do something about it. And so that I've tried not to be too opinionated or overstep. But if I see something that I think someone has overlooked or they didn't have the time to get to, or I can be of service, then I'm gonna try and do that. And the little bits start to add up. When you do these things. Perfect example, and this is probably more on the negative, but I've been to Stonehenge for a visit in England, and it's just an incredible monument, something that's been there for thousands of years.
Amazing.
They had they put barriers up around it because they had people that were starting to take little pieces
Yeah.
of the stones.
Isn't that horrifying?
And one stone is probably not that big a deal, but when you have thousands, if not millions of visitors, if each person took one stone, all of a sudden Stonehenge would be gone.
Absolutely.
And I look at it the other direction. If I go by the side of the road and I see some trash and I pick it up, well, I got one thing and maybe I did my little bit of part, my small part. But if all of a sudden the 10,000 people that go down that road and each person took it upon themselves to grab one little piece of trash, all of a sudden we've got an extremely clean street. And it's about looking at things from the negative and the positive. I've always been amazed at how people that smoke can throw their cigarette butts everywhere.
Me too.
And I think, they maybe are thinking it's part of the culture. It's okay. One little thing isn't going to hurt. But then when you walk across, a highway or you walk across certain areas and these things are all over the place, I think, what thought goes in your mind that thinks it's okay to throw that just in the environment onto the ground?
Yeah.
And do you not think that this can add up and somebody needs to come by and pick that up? And I say, well, us all as individuals, as somebodies, we all need to do our part to be the people that are cleaning up, that are adding to the positive, not necessarily adding to the negative.
So I'll fess something up to you here. Shh, don't let anybody know. I actually have been known to have my windows down and to get to a red light and say to somebody, oh, excuse me, you dropped something back there. What? No, I saw that you dropped something back there. You had your arm hanging out and it looked like you dropped something. What did you drop back there? And they're like, shut up. Okay.
Yep.
You just
Yep.
littered, And when I grew up, it was the, don't litter campaign.
Yeah.
There's nothing like that out there now.
It's at my old business, we had a co-working space and cleanliness was a core value, right?
Really has to be.
And it was unfortunate. I don't know how I want to look at that. It's unfortunate that you have to remind people to clean up after themselves. And I also think we take for granted what adults know. Not all adults know the basics that we learned in kindergarten, right? And some people have different levels of what they believe cleanliness is. And so one of the things I always recommend when I'm consulting is that if you have a core value, explain what that means and give me some examples of what that means.
Yeah.
It means if you walk into a room and you bring food into that room and you leave a mess or you leave smells or you leave anything else, it is your responsibility to make sure that you reset that room back to where you saw it or better.
Yeah.
That's what that means.
Yes.
And it is interesting when you deal with people because we have 7 billion different levels of opinion and standard. And it's about finding that combination and that connection with people that say, where are we going to align on this? And if we don't, what are we going to do about it? And so, you know, I like it when we're doing positive things and doing things in the right direction that help us help one another.
Well, I do too. And so as entrepreneurs, it's interesting the things that we can get pulled into. I never thought that I would be pulled into as a business consultant, as a doctor of psychology doing all this, that I would do etiquette classes.
Mm-hmm.
And so etiquette, I love etiquette. I love to say etiquette. Most people make it softer, etiquette, etiquette.
Yeah.
But when you come in to work, the thing about aromas, please don't come in here and popcorn.
Yeah.
Please don't come in here with tuna or peanut butter
Yeah.
or pepperoni pizza. Other people are going to be salivated. When I was teaching at the university, I would say to my students, they'd say, well, okay, so on the syllabus, I'm going through it the very first day, and it says, you are here to learn. And so we will talk about what the policy is for beverage and food. But the basic idea is if it has an aroma to it or if it has a noise to it, it's not allowed. And by the way, when you bring anything in, you have to bring enough for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there were like 250 kids in some of my classes. And
Yep.
they said, what do you mean for everybody? Well, I had them work in teams. This was wonderful. This was actually brilliant. When they came in that first day, I passed out these sign-up sheets. And I said, where you're sitting right now, and I had my teaching assistants help me, you're going to be in a chunk of 7. Why 7? You'll learn about the psychology of numbers and groups, and then you'll learn this about general psychology, but also you're going to learn general psychology by living it in this class, group dynamics.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to sit in the same seat every time you're in here. Oh, but I don't like this seat. Well, you sat in it.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to sit in the same seat every time. I will have a seating chart, and I'll know where everybody sits, and I'll know all your names, and you're going to wear name tags. I'm going to make them because I want to make sure they're in block letters and I can see them. And every team is going to have a color. Well, you can't have colors for every team in here. Well, I can. Yes, I can, So I had them be in chunks. I had them think about, and then every time they came to class, they had to sign in.
Mm-hmm.
Because I made it so that 30 or 40% of their grade was their attendance, but it meant active attendance. Like you can't be sleeping. You can't be, doing other things. If I think you're doing other things, not only do you lose the point for that day, but your whole team does.
I like that.
Yeah. So it's accountability, right?
Yeah.
And, I had kids challenge me and say, I don't need to come to class though. I never come to class. I can just read the book and I always pass the test. We'll do it in another class. You don't get to do it in here.
Yeah.
And they would get furious with me. Like people would come to my class, try to argue with me. And I'd say, then withdraw from the class.
Yeah.
If you don't want to do it my way, then see, I get to lead this. So I would have them decide as a collective, what food do you want to bring in?
Mm-hmm.
And I'll be gosh darned, it turned into this community in the classroom. And it was beautiful, Brian, because these kids learned how to get into, Washington University, competitive. I said, look, everybody in the room here thinks that they're either going to be an engineer or a surgeon.
Mm-hmm.
Raise your hand if you're in some other category. You're going to have to learn how to team with people in order to get your projects done.
Yeah.
This is the perfect feeding ground for that. And, I want you to clean up everything. This room is immaculate when you leave. And by the way, the teaching assistants and I walk the room after the class. So we see who was a pig here. And you lose points for ever having been here.
It's great.
It was amazing. My classrooms were immaculate and my students were really happy. I mean, they thought, even as a non-tenure faculty member, I got nominated for best faculty member repeatedly. Why? Because they came to class. They knew that I absolutely loved them. I respected them. They mattered to me. I wanted to know who they were. I told them there's not competition in here. I don't grade on the curve.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody in this class can make 100 points.
Yeah.
Everybody can get an A. And I got in trouble for it because the theme of the university was competition. I said, I'm not teaching
Never
these
understood
students.
that.
No, I'm not teaching these students to be average.
Yeah.
And I'm not teaching them that their fellow student is their potential enemy.
Yeah. Well, and how many companies exist where every year you're just going to take your 10 employees and 2 of you are going to get fired?
No way.
I mean, that just sounds like an awful culture, and
It is
that's what
not
we're
culture.
teaching when we grade on the curve. You're instilling competition and comparison
Right.
into the design, and that I don't I don't personally think that's a healthy way to design things.
Well, think about it this way too. In the entrepreneurial world, my involvement with the Missouri Venture Forum has been really interesting because I walk in there and people say, well, why should we exist and what do we do? And then, we have these champion programs and fast pitches so people can come in and say, here's my idea and I need this much funding. And then they talk about, well, 2%, 2% of the people are gonna succeed. What, are you kidding? That's horrible. No,
Yeah.
that's the statistics. No, that's what's in your head.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody comes to us and they have an idea, don't we owe it to them? They're coming to us as the experts. Don't we owe it to them to give them our very best wisdom, systems, consultative guidance, love and support and
100%.
encouragement?
Yeah.
And like if you go to a dentist, does the dentist say to you, well, you got a cavity and like 2 times out of 10, it works. Not in this mouth. I want 100%. What are you
Yeah.
talking about? So I've never understood when people undershoot. That would be like saying to Michael Jordan, well, 2 times out of 10, you'll get the hoop.
So one of my favorite mantras that I share with people is I will match the energy of anybody I work with. And I think what that means is that if you're going to give somebody your all in guidance and response and relationships and everything else from the Missouri Venture Forum, they need to come with the best that they can give you.
That's
And
right.
so it's a mutual accountability that says, I will match whatever energy you come to me with. So if you come and you half-ass your presentation and you're not going to put everything you have into what you're doing, well, neither am I. And I'll give you the energy that you gave me. And it's not that I don't want to give people everything that I can give them in the time that I give them. I expect myself to do that. But when people become successful, they have to master the art of saying no. And so you want to be presented with the people, just like Michael Jordan did, that want to rise to that level. I want the best around me, so come to me if you want the best, and I will give you my best. But don't half-ass it and expect that you're going to get the results that I get out of giving my best. And so I think it's a mutual accountability that says, come with it and you'll get it, and because my rule is I almost always give more than I receive. And so I know somebody comes with a tremendous amount of energy, it might kill me, but they're going to get it back. And I've had that happen a couple of times where somebody comes with full on and I think, ooh, I don't know if I want to accept this one, but let's go.
Well, I guess I can identify with that. The one thing that I do, like people come in and they've got all kinds of trepidations and, their confidence is maybe suffering a little bit. I will work with you. I will help you, or I'll point you over to that other person on the other side of the room. I do
Yeah.
that a lot. I put
Yeah,
people
me
in
too.
the care of others because I'm trying to be in a leadership position. And this is something that we ought to talk about in terms of entrepreneurship.
Mhm.
When you are the leader, you have to do an overall assessment of everybody, do a quality assessment, make sure that the people that you surround yourself with are really at a certain level, that when they look at you, they're still looking up to you for your expertise. They want somebody to follow. Everybody wants somebody to follow. That's why we have leaders. But when we have our team assembled, those people need to be exquisite. And when we assemble our audiences, people go, wow, I mean, I really, that person's done that and they've got these different accomplishments and reputations, and people are really impressed because they can't get that kind of value all in one room, or they would have never been able to meet that person if they hadn't been there. So when I'm putting my teams together, that's exactly what I want to do, is I want to assemble them so people are, kind of, you see a little drool coming out of the corner of their mouth, oh, this is so exciting. But even among the people who are really accomplished, if they have one quality that will alienate them from me forever, and it's a no holds barred, no excuse, I don't care what you say. If you are mean spirited, you are out.
Yeah.
And there are actually, I've had the courage to actually make that a very clear point.
Mhm.
If what you do is you come in here and you're really nasty, then you can't, you can't come back. You're not invited back. Well, it's a public group. No, actually, it's a club.
Yeah.
This is a membership organization, a professional membership association, 501c6, not for profit. We can make a ton of money, but we've got this philanthropic heart.
Mhm.
But the point is, what are the conditions of membership? You have to be kind-hearted.
Yeah.
You don't even have to be that smart, although you ought to be brilliant to be a part of this and be really creative. And it does attract that. But if you come in and you're really mean, then if I put, and here's how I noticed it when I was one of the mentors of people who wanted to get their pitch down so
Yeah.
that they could deliver. That's nerve-wracking. Oh my gosh. You're sitting in front of these investors that you are just praying for years that you will someday get an introduction to. And you're in training with us. I think our job is to instill the best in you and not baby you, but be lovingly encouraging. And I saw people just get ripped to shreds. I mean, I was actually stumbling because I allowed myself to be a guinea pig, and I was stumbling because a couple of these people were so mean. I thought, I finally had to stop and say, you know what? I can't even tell you what my name is, let alone tell you what my dream is. Why are you behaving like this? It's horrible.
Yeah.
And so that is cocky.
I mean, for me, when I see someone who is mean spirited, it just showcases that they have some kind of trauma or issue or childhood problem, or somebody picked on them when they were young. And I try and give people the benefit of the doubt that they need some help to work through. And that's where it comes from. So I still try and come at it from a source of love or understanding. I give them that leeway a couple of times. I have a rule of 3.
Okay.
That the first time I'm pretty solidly going to let you know that something's wrong. Maybe I'll let you get away with it one more time, but by that third time, we're done, and we might be done forever because you've been given enough. You've been given enough instruction on how we need to work together or how this relationship is going to go. And so when I get to the third time, and I've done that with employees, I've done that with, friends. When I kind of run with core values. Core values are the things that we kind of internalize and that mean the most to us, and it's a boundaries that we live in. So if you're running inside of these boundaries, you might butt up against some of those things.
Yeah.
But once you go through the boundary, there has to be an action or a consequence. And for me, when you are very clearly established your boundaries and somebody oversteps those, then they've made the decision. They have made a proactive decision to step over your boundaries. And that's why I don't always give you 3 attempts, but at least I know by the 3rd attempt that I have been extremely clear that this is a core value of mine that cannot be overstepped. And if you decide to overstep it 3 times, then you have made a conscious decision to go outside of the boundaries of our relationship, and our relationship is over. So it makes it very clear, and I feel like it's appropriate to be that way with folks. And I did that in at WashU when I was getting my MBA, we had one team member who never came to the table, and we were in group activities, and he would over and over again. I basically said, "This is practice for the real world. This wouldn't fly in a corporation, and you would be fired at this point."
Yeah.
And I said that 3 times, and at the third time, it had never been done at the WashU program, and I said, "Can we fire one of our team members?" And the head of the program said, "I don't see why not."
Oh, wow.
And I went to my team and I said, "This is what I set out there as what I thought was appropriate for our group." And I wasn't necessarily the leader. I just kind of got to that point. And I said, I'm uncomfortable with this activity. I don't think he benefits our team. What do you guys think? They said, "We kind of agree." And we asked him to leave our group. And it was right before a big assignment was due. And he ended up having to complete the assignment on his own. And in my opinion,
Yeah.
he actually took it better than I thought he would. He was a younger person in our group, and he said, "I'm actually going to take this as a learning experiment and know that I'll be better after I've gotten through this." And I said, "That's a very good way to think about it, and good luck with everything else you do outside of our group." And I thought that was a very positive outcome for both sides. Now, we lost a team member, so we lost his contribution that he did have. But the lack of accountability and the fact that he never came through or didn't come through multiple times in a row, it was the right decision to make. And
yeah, and here's the thing. People loathe working on teams sometimes because they have that experience and nobody steps up and calls it out. So like when I was teaching, in every single class, same formula. There would be a team assignment.
yeah,
And people would just panic. Oh, I hate teams. I can't stand. I'll do anything. I'll do 2 assignments for the price of the one team assignment. Nope. Because in our life, in our family, we're on a team.
yeah,
Our family of origins, the family we create,
mm-hmm.
the neighbors that we have. There's all these reasons why we need to do this. So do it. And then I would give them the skills and tell them, you're going to run into issues. What do you do? How do you deal with it? Well, this is a psychology class.
Mm-hmm.
Look in the textbook.
But it's funny to me because the folks that don't like being on teams, I don't always like being on teams, are a lot of the times the ones who do more work, or they feel resentment or abuse because of the group dynamic. There's some people that love being on a team because they go, "Hey, I can do a quarter of the work, or I can do a 10th of the work, and now all these other people are going to give me the grade that I wanted to get without having to do all the work on my own."
Right.
And those are the people I identify real quickly.
Yeah.
You better come to perform, or we're not going to be working together any longer.
So when we're riding the line, here we are. I want to tie this back into the closing of 1 year and the transition into a next. I've been getting, text messages and social media messages and posts and emails this morning, Happy New Year. I'm so glad to leave 2020 behind. And I'm thinking, you're not leaving it behind. It comes with you. Yep. We don't get to erase it, and if we haven't seen what happens when we've got a cancel culture. Let's erase the history. Let's erase everything. Mm-hmm. Let's just step into the next morning and say, good morning, and rejoice that we're alive for another day. We don't know if we get the whole year, but nothing magical is going to happen at 12:01, that's going to change everything. We still have got a global panic, a worldwide panic. And you and I both have got organizations with entrepreneurs that need a leader. Mm-hmm. You and I are both on the program here twice a week. By the way, I love it that we're doing it twice a week, because once a week I would have missed you.
We never run out of things to talk about.
We never run out of content. So the energy is ongoing, and the reality of the ways in which, even in this program, we are aiming to have a listenership that says, "Oh, I hadn't thought about that," or that's exactly how I feel. Or they punch the air and say, "Gosh darn it, I got to get a hold of those 2 idiots. Why did they talk about this?" And the idea is that for me, I'm looking at 2020 and all I'm saying is, well, that's not true because I'm saying a whole lot. But the punchline for me, the core of what I'm saying, and you just touched on this. I know better now than I've known in my entire life what my freaking boundaries are.
Yeah.
And I know what my tolerances are. And there are going to be people who listen to this and think she's got to be kidding. She's always known this about herself. I know my courage more now than I ever have in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I will still do my best to be polite and articulate so as not to alienate, but to invite. But I know what my core values are, and I know what I want for my life and for my country and for our world.
And that's the gift that 2020 gave us.
Yes.
When we look at challenging ourselves and growth and becoming a better version of who we are,
Yep.
we look at our communities and our societies and our world, we learn more in the challenging times. We grow more in the challenging times. And whether you're setting the parameters yourself to be challenged or you're challenged by outside circumstances, challenge is where we grow the most. And 2020 was a gift to our world because we have grown in ways that were unimaginable prior to. We have learned things that we never knew about ourselves, about our neighbors, about our culture. It's been an incredible year. It's been one of the most monumental years ever. And people who say they want to leave it behind will look back at this year as one of the greatest changes in our society. Now, we don't know which direction particularly we're going to go, but it's going to have a major impact. And for me, I learned so much. It was such a full year.
Oh my God.
It felt like 5 years because there was so much going on and there was so much controversy and turmoil and bad news and just politics and wild stuff going on that I feel like I grew 5 years in 1 year because now I know where my baseline is. I understand where my boundaries are. I understand what I stand for and what I want out of my life much better than I did prior to. And so I think it's been a gift. I think the challenge, I think we have to have the ebbs and flows. We want to be challenged very heartily at times, but we also need times where we can kind of sit back and relax and enjoy life a little bit. And those are the ebbs and flows of riding a lion. Sometimes it's very, very difficult. Sometimes it's nice and majestic. And sometimes we go through challenging growth, and sometimes we go through devastating growth. But my hope for everybody is that we take the challenging times and we have the perspective that these are good because we're being challenged in a way that makes us stronger. And so if we move into 2021 as a better person, as a better people, I think that's the lesson that we've received from this year.
Well, Brian, I think that at some point this year we're going to have to go on a safari and actually ride a lion. And
I'm in. Let's do it.
friends, this is your
90
host.
seconds.
You heard it, 90 seconds. This is your hosts, Dr. Deb Carlin and Brian Lunt. Thank you for being here on Blog Talk Radio, sponsored always by Partners in Excellence. And the theme is Build the Strength Within. And keep it kind, the K factor, where K equals kindness, and the factors are all the things that lead to it. We hope you had a wonderful, kind experience today. Happy New Year and God bless. Okay, stick with me here.
60 seconds.
No.
Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio.
Oh
Goodbye.
my God. All right, hang on one moment here. Oh.